All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Neighborhood Council election review for Region 6. Um, a few introductions first. My name is Michael Lectrich. I'm with the Neighborhood Council Elections Division under City Clerk. So I'm going to be talking about the administration of Neighborhood Council elections. I have Naima with me, who is one of our election administrators. She'll be monitoring the chat, answering questions. So feel free to use that chat if you want. But also know at the end of our presentations, we'll have plenty of time to answer any questions that come up because we're here to help and answer anything that we can. So after I go through the administration, I'm going to hand it off to Mary Lou with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. And she will be going over the outreach for the neighborhood council election season, and then we'll open it up to questions. So with that, we'll get started because we have a lot of information to cover, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time to answer any questions. So I'll go over the meeting agenda for tonight. First, we're going to go over election documents that are often uses to create kind of the blueprint for each neighborhood council's election, and just go over a lot of where you can find information about elections. I'll go through the candidate filing process. I will also be going over the all vote by mail election, as 2025 is going to be all vote by mail for neighborhood council elections. I'll go over some election resources. I'll hand it off to Mary Lou, and then we will be answering any questions that you have. So with that, let's jump right in. So the first thing I want to cover is neighborhood council bylaws. This is where we get all the information for specific NCs to create their elections. So the sections that we highlight and refer to the most are going to be Article 3, which outlines the boundaries for the neighborhood council, along with any internal boundaries and shared assets with other neighborhood councils. Article 4 will go over the 4 stakeholder types. I'll list those out in the next slide. Article 5 is the governing board. So this is unique to every neighborhood council. It goes over things like what kind of seats make up the governing board for that neighborhood council. If there are term limits, if there's staggered seating, it often will state how those seats are staggered in elections. Article 10 details the elections, such as the voter verification type, if there's any special voter requirements. Sometimes there will be special candidate requirements located here as well. Attachment A is a visual of the map, so it takes everything from Article 3 and puts it in a visual map. And then attachment B is the governing board structure and voting model. This will list out every board seat, along with how that person is elected, appointed, or selected. It will have the candidate requirements and the voter qualifications for each seat on the board. So going back to what I said about stakeholder types, when it comes to neighborhood councils, when we talk about stakeholders, there's 4 stakeholder types. First one is live. So that's anyone who resides within neighborhood council boundaries. Second one is work. So anyone who provides services within the neighborhood council boundaries. Third is owning property. This is owning real property within the neighborhood council boundaries. And the fourth one, the one that can be a little bit confusing, is the community interest stakeholder. This is defined as a person who participates in a nonprofit organization that has continuously maintained a physical street address for not less than 1 year and performs ongoing and verifiable activities and operations that benefit the neighborhood. So in 2020, the community interest definition was added to the ordinance, and This is that definition. So the thing that makes it kind of unique is the community interest definition puts requirements on the stakeholder along with the community organization. It defines what the community organization has to be, which is a nonprofit organization that has a physical street address for at least a year within the boundaries of the neighborhood council. So those are the 4 stakeholder types. One thing to note as well is citizenship is not a requirement when we talk about stakeholder types. The only requirements are what we're looking at here, these 4 stakeholder types. So we take all that information, the stakeholders, the information from the bylaws, and we create a ballot voting model. Ballot voting models have been emailed out to the neighborhood council boards for all of Region 6. Feel free to put in the chat if you have not seen the ballot voting model, if you're a board member. But what I want to do is I want to kind of go through the ballot voting model so that you know what you're looking at when you see this. This is kind of, I often refer to it as the blueprint for each neighborhood council's election, because it's going to tell you a lot of information. The first one, the neighborhood council name here, along with the abbreviation. This is going to be the neighborhood council name that's on all election materials. That's everything from the certified list of candidates to the ballots to the official results. This is the title of those documents. Now we're going to see ballot types. So that's how many ballot types there are in that neighborhood council. This one, for example, is 9. Next is ballot issued. So this is how many ballots a voter can receive. Some neighborhood councils, like this one, there's 9 different ballot types, but each stakeholder will only receive 1 ballot type. Some neighborhood councils might have 9 ballot types, and maybe stakeholders can receive up to 9 ballots. And so that would be detailed here. Board seats. So this will list the total number of board seats and how many are up for election. The term for those seats, it's always 2 or 4 years. The voting age. Voting age is always 16 years or above, unless there's a U seat. For the U seat, stakeholders 14 and 15 can vote for that U seat. The stakeholder verification type, it's going to be self-affirmation documentation. I'll get into those specifics about those 2 different verification types later in the presentation. Candidate restrictions. So this will list anything that's within the bylaws. Most common is going to be candidates can run for no more than 1 board seat, but there's sometimes a little bit more specific restrictions that can be within the bylaws. Under other election related language, we're going to have any time that a neighborhood council has a shared boundary or shared location, it'll be listed here. For example, Venice High is listed here because that's a, oops, click too fast. Venice High is a shared boundary with Mar Vista and Venice Neighborhood Council. So it will be, we always have the shared assets here. We also include the vote by mail period, just as a reference point. And then we break down each ballot. So all of these 9 ballots will be listed here. First, we'll have the title of that ballot, the qualifications to receive that ballot, and then we'll list out every seat that's going to be on that ballot, along with the number of seats. So for example, the at-large director, voters will be able to vote for up to 7 at-large directors on the ballot. And then it goes to the next ballot. So that's the ballot voting model. So now that we've prepared all of that, we can go into the candidate filing process. For Region 6, candidate filing is going to be from December 20th, 2024. So that's this Friday to February 3rd, 2025. The candidate filing period is a 45-day, is open for 45 calendar days. Application types, their candidates can go through the neighborhood council portal, or they can also submit paper applications. Paper applications are available on our website. We have them in PDF fillable forms in English, along with 13 other languages. And all of those are fillable forms. We will also have those available at some library and rec and park locations. I'll list those out towards the end of the presentation. One thing to note is all candidates are required to provide documentation proving that they meet the stakeholder requirements for that seat. When we talk about required documentation for candidates, there's 3 things that we're looking for: a photo ID, proof of age, because there's always an age requirement attached to every board seat, and proof of stakeholder status. For example, if they work, a proof that they work within the neighborhood council boundaries. If they own real property, proof that they own real property within the neighborhood council boundaries. So once our office receives those applications, receives that documentation, and we're able to prove stakeholder status, candidates will be certified, meaning that their name will be on the ballot. Once someone is certified, there is a period where stakeholders can challenge candidates. This could be, most common would be if they feel that someone has reached the term limit, there could be a challenge. Our office will review those challenges and affirm or deny them. After the challenge period, after the withdrawal period, we release the certified list of candidates. This is released 60 days prior to election day. So this will have the list of all of the candidates that are going to be on the ballot. We will also release a contact list to neighborhood councils for all of those candidates, so that the neighborhood councils can reach out to candidates should they have a candidate forum or any sort of event that they would like to invite the candidates to. So now let me go through the paper application and the portal. So just give me a second while I switch screens really quick. All right, so this is what our 2025 paper application looks like. We tried to simplify it a little bit. The first section is asking for neighborhood council information. So the candidate lists the neighborhood council they would like to run for and the seat they would like to run for. Next is the candidate information, where they can put their name on the ballot. So when it comes to neighborhood councils, name on your ballot is the name that you're known by in that community. For example, here we have Victor Aguilar. While their first name is Theo, maybe Victor is their middle name, or just that's what they're known by in the community. That can be their name on the ballot. They can list out their pronouns. This is optional. This is only listed on the candidate website. The first name, last name. So first name, last name, that will tie to their documentation. They'll list out their birth year. We only need birth year in most cases. Sometimes if the year is going to be very close to the age requirement, we might have to get more specific, but for the most part, especially for candidates, we're just making sure that they're 18 years or above. So if the year is above that, then we are fine. Phone number and email. Those 2 fields are optional, but highly recommended, because if we have any questions, we want to make sure that we can reach out to those candidates. And so that's how we can do that. However, it's not required. I do always state, though, if we get an application that has maybe a name and a phone number, we will be reaching out to those candidates to try to work with them to complete the application. So after email address, there's the question, are you a current board member in this neighborhood council? Yes or no. This can really help with term limits. That's the main reason that we're asking that question. Now there's also the option to initial if you agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. This is optional, but it can definitely be included. Under that, there's the qualifying address section. So we've broken this down into the 4 different stakeholder types. So there's live, work, own, and community interest. And they complete all that apply. We always say complete all that apply for 2 reasons. The first one being sometimes maybe a candidate might have to live and work in the community to be eligible for that seat. So if they fill out both of those, that will be helpful. Then there's sometimes too where maybe they're not sure which address is within neighborhood council boundaries. So just listing both of those, then we'll be able to check to say, you live outside of the city, but you do actually work within Venice Neighborhood Council. So we'll be able to work with you there. So each one just list out the information for that stakeholder type. And then they check the boxes here. The reason that we have these boxes is because it can help with certain neighborhood councils. There might be an employee, sorry for that, an employee seat versus an owner seat. So checking that can really help us get the information that we need. So under that, there's documentation. So if they're including any documentation with their application, they can list it here. So for example, because this candidate works in the neighborhood council, they're including a driver's license, which will prove age and a photo ID. And their second documentation type is going to be a pay stub because that is tied to their qualifying address. And their qualifying address is because they work in the boundaries. We need something that's current tying them to that. So that would work for them there. They sign under penalty of perjury that everything is true and correct, and date. The second page is optional. And this is an area where they can include a candidate statement. Candidate statements must be are limited to 1,000 characters. That's including punctuation, spaces, all of that. If they want to be translated into English and Spanish, it still has to fall under that 1,000 character limit. And so that is the paper application. What I'm going to do now is go through the neighborhood council portal real quickly to show how candidates can register. There are 2 options to log in. There is the option if someone would like to sign in with the Angelino account. However, that is not required. They can just log in straight to the portal, which is easy as this is the home screen, and they can just click need an account register here. They type in their first name, last name, email confirmation, click create. The candidate is sent an email with a link to create a password. Once they create the password, they're able to log in to the portal. If for any reason they forget your password, you can type in your password here. So I have an email, a password, so I'll log in. And when we talk about the neighborhood council portal, this is the same portal for candidates and voters. I'll show you the difference a little bit later, but right now we're focused on candidates. So as you can see, candidate is checked here, and you can create a candidate application. And so the candidate application form is broken up into 5 different steps. And so the first one is going to be neighborhood councils. So you can select a neighborhood council. So only neighborhood councils who are currently open to candidate registration will be showing here. But this is a test site, so just know there's that's why Region 6 is listed here. So let's see. So once you choose the neighborhood council, you'll see the seat option pop up, and then you're only going to see the seats that are currently up for election. So if a neighborhood council has staggered seating, not all the seats will be listed here, just the ones that are currently up for election. So once you choose the seat, you'll see the requirements pop up for that seat here. Then you can choose your stakeholder type. It's always going to have those 4 different stakeholder types. So I'll just choose live. And then they select if they're a current board member of this neighborhood council. So I'll just hit no. And that's step 1. So now we're on to step 2, which is going to be the candidate information. The nice thing about going through the portal is first name, last name, and email is all going to be pulled from the information provided when you created the account. However, this can all be edited. So for example, because it's pulling Michael Electrich, because of that's what I used, you can definitely change this to whatever it is. If you have an email that's specific for your candidacy that you are going to refer to more often, you can change the email here. So any email notifications will be sent to whatever email you have here. But let me go back to the top. So its name will appear on the ballot. So again, this is going to be what am I known by in the neighborhood council. Pronouns are optional, so I can include those. First name, last name, date of birth, so that you can just when it comes to the portal, you do have to include the month, date, and year. However, if you only want to provide the year, you can always put 0101 and then the year. So like if I put 1987, definitely would be older than the requirement of 18. You can include a phone number. If you wish to not include a phone number, you can click decline to state phone number. And then there's the option, click if you agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. This is optional, but I'll click it. You can hit next. So that's it for step 2. Now we're on to step 3, which is going to be qualifying address. So again, whenever we say qualifying address, this is the address of your stakeholder type. So if I have community interest, because maybe I attend a church within the neighborhood council boundaries, this would be the church address. If I work, it would be my work address. So let me type in an address really quick. Sorry, I'm not the best typer. So you include a street, city name, and then zip code. Once you do that, the great thing about going through the portal as well is you can click verify qualifying address. And it plots the address you provided against the map with the seat. So what that means is, as you can see here, the whole neighborhood council is highlighted here in the green. And you can see the internal boundaries, but this seat in particular, you just have to be a stakeholder within the neighborhood council. If this was a seat that requires me to be within the Chinatown boundaries, only Chinatown would be outlined. So that's a nice thing of when you go through the portal. However, if like, let's say for some reason my address was not showing within the boundaries, there's nothing stopping this application from being submitted. It can still be submitted. We'll just have to take a closer look on our end and we'll contact the voter if there's any questions. So you can hit close. And then there's the option for mailing address. You can click same as qualifying, different from qualifying, or decline to state. So I'll just hit decline to state. And I will hit next. So now what's going to happen, once I hit next, I'm going to have 2 pop-up windows. And once I complete these pop-up windows, my application will be considered submitted. When it comes to candidate filing, the candidate filing deadline is broken up into 2 parts. The main candidate filing deadline is just requiring that the application is submitted. Then after the candidate filing deadline, there are 3 calendar days where candidates have an option to, or have the ability to upload additional documentation to their application. So if I hit accept, submit, so that was just the penalty of perjury agreement. Now we have the neighborhood council board member candidate for election board service acknowledgement and affirmation form. So this is a document that has a wealth of knowledge to explain what neighborhood councils do, what board members do, things like that. This is included in our handbook. There's also multiple links to it on our website, so it can be referred to at a later date. But once you scroll to the bottom, candidates are required to affirm that they read and understand and agree the rules and hit submit. So once they hit submit on that, the application is considered submitted, even though there's no documentation. As I mentioned, there's that 3-day date after candidate filing to provide documentation. So now we're on to step 4. So step 4 is the documentation step. So we have the requirements up here. So you can read through those, just as always, to have a reference of like, this is what I need to prove that I meet the requirements. If there's any questions, voters can click here and it will link to the 2025 Neighborhood Council Documentation Guide. What the documentation guide does is it gets very specific in different stakeholder types. So for example, if you live in the NC as a renter or tenant, maybe it was a renter or tenant seat, it provides examples of proof of renter status, examples of proof of ID, and examples of proof of age. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just a list of the most common documents that we often see tied in with these different stakeholder types. And then what you can do is, so there's always at least 2 boxes. There's proof of ID and then proof of live. This would say whatever stakeholder type I chose. So if I chose proof of own, this would say proof of own. And so what you can do is you choose the documentation type. Again, we just have the most common examples of what we see, but there's always the other option. So I can do a driver's license, and then I can select a file. And so I can upload a document. And then you get a notice that the document was successfully uploaded and that our office will review it. You can always, if like, let's say in this case, a driver's license works for all of the requirements, you can upload just one document. If you need multiple, you can upload as many as you need. So for example, maybe I chose live. Maybe my driver's license is a expired driver's license, but it still proves my date of birth, photo ID. I can pair it with a utility bill, and maybe multiple documents. Sometimes we need at least 3 documents to prove stakeholder status. It's gonna be dependent on what the stakeholder needs and requires. So once I've uploaded documentation, I can hit next. And this will take me to step 5, which is the candidate profile. So the candidate profile, let me get a photo really quick. So you can hit upload candidate profile. And then select a photo. And when you select the photo, you can see that there's there's this box to make them all kind of standard size, but you can edit it a little bit. Like maybe I feel like I need to center it a little bit more. You can do that. So this is the photo as a whole. And then down here, we'll show what's going to show on the candidate photo. And I can be like, okay, I'm happy with that. So I can hit use this image. Underneath that, I can include a statement. So I can put, I love this community. And as you can see down here, so it's starting to track how many characters I've used out of the 1,000 character limit. The great thing about step 5 is this does not have to be completed when you start your application. You have up until 35 days prior to election day to upload a candidate photo and statement. You can also change it multiple times. Let's say that I, submitted one and realized, oh, there's a lot of stuff I missed. I want to add it. You can always go in and edit your photos and statements. Also, just to notate, our office does not, the candidate photos and statements have to be reviewed by our office before they get posted to the candidate website. The reason for that is just because a lot of the times, it's already even happened this election season, people will include sensitive materials as their candidate photo, such as their documentation. So they might upload their driver's license. And we don't want that information to be on the candidate website. There's a lot of sensitive information with that. So once our office reviews it, we review those pretty quickly. It will go up on the site. And so if you have one that's up there, you make an edit, we'll review it, update, approve it, and then it will replace what is currently up there. And so we'll just hit save. And so that application is done. The great thing about going and applying in the portal is you can log in at any point and see the status of your application. So for example, this is what I call a candidate tile. And so it shows the name that's on the ballot, which NC, the seat that I'm running for, my stakeholder type, and the status. So this one's certified, so that means my name's going to be on the ballot. Great. And then it just includes some different filing dates and deadlines, including profile dates and deadlines. And so even once your application is approved, you can always click this candidate photo and statement, and you can approve and edit your statement, your candidate photo and statement here. You will have, let's say that you're a neighborhood council stakeholder in multiple neighborhood councils. You can submit an application for every neighborhood council that you have stake in through the portal, and each one will have a candidate tile here. So you can review all of those at the same time. You can see I have quite a few withdraw because this is a test portal. And so that is the candidate filing website. I do want to highlight a little bit the candidate profile website. This will show all of the NCs that have already opened for candidate filing. And so when you click on neighborhood council, you'll see the seat names for those that are up for election, the terms for those seats, the number of seats up for election, the qualifications to run for that seat, and the qualifications to vote for that seat. So let's say that you're a candidate and you're not sure who can vote for you. You can go to this site and you can see here, oh, this is who is going to be able to vote for me. And then you can see all of the candidates' profiles and statements. They will be in the random alpha order, which is going to be the same order that they will be on the ballot. And it also includes the candidate documentation that was used to certify candidates. I do want to stress that when we talk about candidate documentation, once a candidate is certified, that documentation is deleted. We do not have access to those documents anymore. We have our notes so we can review what we saw and use to certify the candidates, but the actual documentation is destroyed. So we do not still have copies of that documentation. So with that, let me go back to the presentation. So I went through the candidate filing paper application. I went through the portal. And so now I'm going to talk about the all vote by mail registration process for neighborhood councils. Vote by mail registration is for Region 6 is going to be from February 21st to April 13th, 2025. So I'm going to break down kind of the big steps for the application process. The first step is vote by mail application is submitted. One really important thing to stress to stakeholders is applications must be submitted every election when it comes to neighborhood council elections. Unlike municipal elections where you're on a voter roll, there is no voter roll for neighborhood councils. Application has to be submitted for every election, even if you've voted in every neighborhood council election. The reason for this is bylaws may change, requirements may change, your stakeholder status may change. So we want to make sure that we are providing the proper ballots that you qualify for. Next is voter verification. So our staff receives the application. We'll review the application to verify eligibility to vote based off the bylaws. This is both for self-affirmation documentation. I'll get through in the next slide, I think, I'll get through the differences of those two. So once we've verified the voter, next, the ballot packet is going to be mailed. What's included in a ballot packet first is going to be ballot or ballots if it's one of those neighborhood councils where voters are able to receive multiple ballots. It will include instructions. So these instructions will include the election date, different ways that ballots can be returned. It will also include information on viewing candidate photos and statements. And it will include a prepaid return envelope to send those ballots in. Next is stakeholder votes. Pretty self-explanatory on that one. And lastly, ballots are returned. So ballot envelopes can be returned to our office 3 different ways. There's going to be USPS using that prepaid return envelope. Ballot boxes. So we have partnered with libraries and some rec and park locations where we will have applications and ballot boxes available within each region. And ballots can also always be returned to our election office. I do want to highlight a little bit that notification emails and status updates are sent to voters and for most of these steps. So that's going to include when an application is submitted. Once we've verified that the application meets the voter eligibility, an email will be sent. When a ballot packet is mailed, an email will be sent. This is really helpful in those cases when maybe you got that email 2 weeks ago and you still haven't received your ballot. You can always call our office and we'll be able to mail out a resend. And once a ballot is returned to our office, the moment that we receive it, we scan it and an email is sent to let the voter know that we have received that ballot and that it will be included in the tally. So I know you've heard me mention it a few times. When it comes to voter verification, there are 2 different voter verification types when it comes to neighborhood councils. That's self-affirmation and documentation. So I'm going to go through the 3 things that we're looking for when we verify voters and how these 2 processes differ. So the first thing that we're looking for is identity. When it comes to self-affirmation, the voter provides their information on the application. For documentation, we need a photo ID. The most common example of this is going to be a driver's license or a California issued license or issued ID. So next thing is age, because there's always an age requirement when it comes to voters. Again, that's going to be 16 years or above for most seats, well, for all seats. And then if there's a youth seat, for youth, there can be voters can be 14 and 15 to vote for that youth seat. So for self-affirmation, they're providing date of birth on the application. That's all that's required. For documentation, we need a document with the driver with the date of birth. So again, a really common example of this is going to be a driver's license, which is great because that covers 2 of the required fields. The third thing we're looking for is stakeholder status. So for self-affirmation, we're just looking for the stakeholder to provide, excuse me, a stakeholder status address on the application. So for example, if I worked in a neighborhood council, I would just include the where I work and the address for where I work, and that would be good for self-affirmation. For documentation, we need a document with a stakeholder status. So for example, a utility bill. I bring this one up a lot because maybe you have a driver's license that doesn't have your current address on it, but you can pair it with something else. So for example, I can take my driver's license and pair it with a current utility bill, proving my current stakeholder status. So that's kind of the differences when we talk about self-affirmation documentation. So now that we've kind of gone through all of that, I want to go through the 2 stakeholder registration options. The first one is online registration. So that's going through the neighborhood council portal. This is open for 51 days. The great thing about going through the portal is stakeholders are able to track their application and ballot status. So in addition to receiving emails, they can also log into the portal at any point and see the status for their application. Especially, this can be really helpful too if you have multiple applications in. Because maybe I work in one neighborhood council, I live in another neighborhood council, and I have community interest in another. That means I can submit at least 3 applications, and I can log into the portal and check on the status of those applications. There's also paper registration. This is actually a longer filing period due to a request from neighborhood councils just to have access to those paper applications more, to be able to provide them at events and things like that. And these applications, just like the candidate applications, are available on our website in PDF fillable forms and also translated into multiple languages. The great thing about paper applications is voters can designate an authorized agent to collect an application. A good example of this is maybe a neighborhood council is having a voter information event where they have a bunch of vendors. It's a big community event. They can also be handing out paper applications, and whoever is working that table could be the authorized agent so that they can collect all of those applications and send them into our office for us to process. I'll go through that when we go through the paper application, which is what I'm going to do right now. So let me switch screens real quick. Okay, so this is the 2025 Neighborhood Council Vote by Mail application. So the first section is voter information, where the voter will put the neighborhood council that they're a part of. They'll include their first name, middle name, and last name, birth year, phone number, and email. Just like candidates, this is optional, highly recommended in case we have any issues or questions about the application so that we can get everything squared away and ensure we get that voter their ballots. Just like I mentioned with candidates, if we get an application that has a name and a phone number, we will contact those voters to work with them to get the information we need to assure that they are eligible to receive a ballot and get that ballot for that in the mail for them. There's also the option to initial if they agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. They can include that here. Just like the candidate application, we have the qualifying address portion, and it still says complete all that apply. This is very important, just because each stakeholder type might make them eligible to receive multiple ballots. So we want to make sure that we're sending the ballots that they are eligible for. So for example, here, this voter filled out live and community interest. So this neighborhood council might have a ballot for stakeholders who live. They might have a ballot for community interest stakeholders. So that information is completed. Next is mailing address. They complete if different from above. So whatever the mailing address, it does not have to fall within the neighborhood council boundaries, because let's say that I know I'm referencing working in the neighborhood council often, but if I work in the neighborhood council, I probably don't want to receive my ballots where I work. I would prefer to receive them at home. So, and maybe I live outside of the city. It's wherever your mailing address is can be listed here. They declare under penalty of perjury that everything is true and correct. And then lastly, this is that authorized agent portion that I was discussing earlier. So for example, I'm walking around the community, want to make sure that I have my neighbors sign up for the to receive a ballot. So I can go knock on some doors, hand them an application, and just fill out this section where my name would be printed and signed that I'm the authorized agent for these applications. So I can collect all of these, send them to our office so that we can process them. So let me just go back to show you. So now I'm going to go through the portal as if I'm a voter. It's the opening page is still the same. So I just log in and then I can click voter. And it looks a little bit different. But you see create voter application. So I'll start a voter application. Voter applications are broken up into 2 or 3 steps. We try to make it a lot simpler for voters because there's a lot less information that's required when it comes to voters. Just like the candidate application though, my first name and last name and email is going to be pulled from the account that I registered with. So, but these are all eligible, editable. So you can edit those names. So first name, middle name, I include date of birth, but again, maybe I don't want to share my, I only have to prove that I'm 16 years or above. So I can put 0101 and then just include the year here. You have the option to select how you would like to be contacted, email or phone number. So maybe I would prefer email, but I can still include a phone number if I would like to. And then can click to agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. So I'll just click that, but it's optional. It can be, actually, I'll unclick it and you can go to next. And so we're on to step 2. one thing to note is based off the voter verification type, it will change from 2 to 3 steps. So for example, if I choose Arts District, Arts District is a documentation required neighborhood council. So now you can see up here, I have a third step where I would upload documentation. It's just like candidate filing where you just have the boxes and you can upload documents as you prefer. But I'm going to, just for testing purposes, go to Westlake North, which is self-affirmation, and it went back to the 2-step process. So now you have the stakeholder types, and it's check all that apply for that same reason of on the paper application, where maybe if I choose live and work, I will be eligible for different ballots. And once you click those, a box pops up here. So residence address, because that's tied to my live, and then work organization, because I clicked work. But maybe I only want to put live, so the work address is gone. So now I'm going to type in a residence address. So just put that in. And then zip code. The great thing about going through the portal is you can verify address, very similar to on the candidate side, where it's just going to show the outline of the neighborhood council, and it's going to plot and show that the address is within the boundaries. If for some reason it's not showing up within the boundaries, there's just a message here that our office will review the application, but it's not going to stop that application from being submitted. So let me just save this so you guys don't have to see me type that again. Under the qualifying address is going to be a mailing address. So you can click that here. And there's 2 options here. You can hit verify mailing address, or once you hit submit, it's going to do that. So let me just hit submit. And a message pops up very similar to whenever you're ordering something online. It will be checking with USPS to make sure that that's an address that's within the system. And maybe make any changes, like let's say I accidentally misspelled Angeles, it would fix it here. Almost always you're going to have that pop up because it's going to include those 4 digits of the zip code. But you can always say no, use the address I provided if that's your preference, or you can just hit yes. So once I hit yes, I just agree to the penalty of perjury and hit submit. And that application is submitted. So that's a self-affirmation application. If it was documentation, it would take me to the next screen where I could upload documentation. Just like I said, just like it's the same as the candidate's side. And so with that, let me go back to the presentation. So we went through all that. So now I want to highlight a few very important vote by mail dates for Region 6. The first one is going to be vote by mail application period opens on Friday, February 21st, 2025. Next, ballot mailing will begin on Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. This is the same deadline for candidate photos and statements. The reason for that is we want to make sure that all of the voters that receive a ballot will have the same information. So they'll have access to the same photos and statements. Next is vote by mail application period ends. That will end on Sunday, April 13th, 2025. There's the deadline to request resend ballots. This is Tuesday, April 15th. The reason for this is we want to make sure that that gives the stakeholder enough time to receive the ballot in the mail. Election day is officially Tuesday, April 22nd. And the deadline to receive postmarked ballots is Friday, May 2nd. This is 10 days after Election Day. So the requirement is, as long as I, on Tuesday, April 22nd, get my ballot in the mail, it has 10 days to be delivered to our office with that postmark on it to be included in the tally. So when it comes to returning ballots for Region 6 by Election Day, which is going to be, again, April 22nd, there's 3 different ways that ballots can be returned. The first one is USPS. Voters are provided a postage paid return envelope in their ballot packet. We will also have library and recreation and park locations where we will have ballot drop boxes available in every region. And again, ballots can be dropped off at our office by April 22nd. So these are the 4 rec and park and library locations in Region 6 where we will have candidate filing applications, vote by mail applications, and ballot boxes available in Region 6. One thing to note, if you know of a location that might be a really good spot to house candidate filing applications and vote by mail applications, feel free to reach out to your election administrator and we can see if we can make arrangements for that. And lastly, I wanted to highlight the election administrators for Region 6. So we have 4 election administrators, one of them being Naima, who is helping in the chat. Thank you, Naima. Feel free to reach out to your election administrators if you have any questions about the election. You'll be hearing from your election administrator pretty often. We are sending out weekly updates with statistics for the election season. So you should be hearing from them pretty often. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mary Lou.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'll be sharing my screen and then briefly go into slideshow mode. Please let me know if there are any issues. I think we're good. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I've met many of you. Many of your names look familiar as well. But for those of you that I have not met or haven't had a chance to do a one-on-one with, my name is Mary Lou Guevara. I am the Awareness and Engagement Director with Empower LA, also known as the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. And tonight, I'm happy to be joining you to talk a little bit about planning for engagement, specifically as it pertains to neighborhood council elections. I'll be sharing a couple of links in the chat after my presentation because I know we'll have some time for Q&A. And obviously, as Michael stated, this presentation is being recorded and these slides will be shared with you. I'll definitely be in communication with you throughout the election cycle. So this is just the beginning. We'll also be sharing these slides and additional resources as we move along. So with that said, let's get started. So for those of you that may have joined us back at our town hall on September 30th, this will be a revision of that. Just our general goal and our vision as a department for this election cycle is to do our best to implement a public engagement election awareness campaign that builds on our continuous civic engagement efforts that we do year long, partnering with you neighborhood councils. Our vision, of course, of a successful election is one where we increase the number of candidates the number of voters, and overall see an increase in neighborhood council awareness throughout the city. So that's how we measure success. If you have taken a look at our engagement plan, we have specific metrics and goals that we're trying to reach. Happy to share that with you. And also that can be found on our website as well. So with that said, the framework that is guiding our department and our current work are these 5 pillars. This is the logic of our work. One is messaging and communications engagement, which is a lot of what we're doing right now, focusing on how do we increase awareness, how do we get in front of individuals that haven't heard about neighborhood councils, or maybe have heard about neighborhood councils, but maybe never thought of joining a neighborhood council, or haven't heard about how to join a neighborhood council. Additionally, partnerships, sharing that messaging with those partners at the city level. So that means our city departments, our mayor's office, obviously working with our partners here at the Office of the City Clerk, and also community partners. So those nonprofits, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, those that are working in the community, providing programs and services to your stakeholders, to people that could potentially be great candidates and fill some of your board seats, or also even thinking beyond the election cycle, getting messaging to those that could potentially be great committee members who would want to come to your meetings and just get involved in the neighborhood council system. Additionally, candidate and voter engagement. Obviously, right now we've activated we're on candidate mode, but obviously the next phase will be trying to do engagement of voters, trying to bring them into the fold. And how do we do that? Will obviously depend on messaging and our partnerships. Supporting coordination with neighborhood council, so working with you. I've been doing a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of going out to board meetings, going out to election committee meetings, outreach committee meetings, seeing how we can tailor services, how we can provide resources to neighborhood councils and you all that are doing the kind of the boots on the ground, the grassroots work, and just seeing what resources we can provide as a department. And we have a suite of them, and I'll be getting to those in the next couple of slides, but just coordinating with you to see how we can best kind of get out into your communities and have the most impact. And obviously advertisement, and that includes free and paid advertisement, any opportunity where we can work and get our messaging and our website and our links in front of individuals and have them know about the work that you all do and the stories of the members that make up the system. So with that said, just sharing a bit more about the work that we're doing and the resources that you can already utilize. Messaging and communication engagement. We've created a social press kit. The department has been hard at work developing copy, content, and graphics to create just general awareness of the neighborhood council system. This foundational knowledge, which is, what is the system, who can get involved, where do meetings happen, what do neighborhood councils do, what to expect when you attend meetings, what to expect if you were to be elected into a seat, and then the what and why and how of neighborhood council elections. And the logic behind this is, as we go out and do a lot of tabling events, and we're sure that you get this all the time, is as we're talking to stakeholders about neighborhood council elections and asking them to get involved, asking them to consider running, one of the main questions we get is, well, I don't even know what neighborhood councils are. So we're finding ourselves having to kind of start from just basic knowledge and having to create that foundational knowledge in those conversations before we can even get to explaining what neighborhood councils are, and making the ask of someone to get involved. So as a result, we partner with Social Press Kit to make it easy to distribute some of this information citywide for our community partners, our city departments, our council offices, and also have created a set of regional kits, communications kits for neighborhood councils and elected offices, um, to help us in getting out this information via your social media, your newsletters, your websites, where we provide a lot of this basic knowledge, so that your stakeholders are informed about what neighborhood councils are, what they do, who's a stakeholder, how to get involved, where you meet. And I've created a quick video to show an example of what this press kit looks like. And I'll be putting a link in this Zoom shortly after this presentation. As you can see, we've created graphics and slides. We've also created different categories for the content that makes it easy to organize and easy for hopefully you to find. There's hashtags, websites. All you essentially need to do is you're looking at the citywide, which contains content for all regions, and general messaging for citywide partners, a lot of which you also have the option to use. Then we have regional content, which is in order by region, beginning with region 11. I believe your region is already up, so if you want to start sharing those assets, for example, here is an example of how you would, for example, post a Facebook post. You can download the images onto your computer if you want, or um, you can select what images you'd like to download. You can copy the text. If you want to work on it later, you can definitely edit the text yourself if you want. You can post directly to X, and I believe Instagram as well. It doesn't support Nextdoor, so if you'd want to do some posting on Nextdoor, you'd have to download the graphics and manually go onto Nextdoor and do that post yourself. As you can see, it also includes a lot of other content like deadlines, um, uh, general content about neighborhood councils, hopefully just information that you can just use, and don't have to start from scratch when you're looking to build out your election pages or your election newsletters. Additionally, you will receive on candidate filing day or right before, each neighborhood council is receiving in their email inbox a PDF and image format file of a personalized flyer to promote candidate filing and their open seats. Each flyer includes the neighborhood council's logo with your branding colors, your open seats as they will appear on your ballot, general eligibility, website, which is your website, our elections page, which will include obviously elections information, election deadline for your region, and a QR code that takes them to the candidate page if they're interested in filing. In addition, I am also available for one-on-one check-ins, guidance. If you need any additional tailored resources, we can make those available based on our capacity. Outreach, committee presentations is something that I've been doing on a regular basis. We do have a public drive with a lot of resources and guides. If you've ever received an email from me, I have a link on it that takes you straight to the drive in my signature, and I can also provide that link in the chat. And we will begin scheduling canvassing across all neighborhood councils, and we'll be contacting board members as soon as we schedule those. We will be starting in the Harbor area as soon as the end of this week. So this Friday, we will be out in the Harbor area, and this Saturday, we'll be out in West LA. So we will be going in order as the regions have opened up for candidate filing. However, if there is a preferred date, if you have board members who would like to kind of start canvassing or start walking the neighborhood, start visiting businesses within your community and start, leaving flyers or posting flyers at the windows of businesses, or at least asking if that's possible, using public billboards at coffee shops. We are available. You can definitely reach out and we can schedule that. We are in coordination with some partners already. We are doing some presentations across the city. We've done some presentations with Leadership for Educational Equity that works with individuals that are looking for opportunities to run for office, for local office. We are in coordination with the Mayor's Office of Community Safety. We've done a presentation to that group. The Pat Brown Institute, we have a presentation coming up in January. We are doing presentations with the Housing Authority going into next year. We just completed the first of many presentations with LAUSD, as I know that many neighborhood councils have youth seats, and increasingly so, many have seats that are currently vacant. So we are focusing on those. We are also working with the Youth Development Department, and we've done presentations to the Olivia E. Mitchell Youth Council board members as part of our continuous partnership. We have obviously released a press release with the Office of the City Clerk. We are in the process at the beginning stages of coordinating a potential press release with the mayor's office. And have a lot of great, hopefully, activities that will come to fruition with the mayor's office in early 2025 to promote neighborhood council elections, including some fun videos. And obviously, if you're a city employee, to all 18,000 employees that work in our city that receive the personnel department newsletter, they've received communication about the neighborhood council elections and will continue to receive them throughout the election cycle. And LA Sanitation has also included that information. We will be working with other city departments. I think our goal is to work with the majority of all departments. I think our goal is about 30 to 35 departments to get on their newsletters, to share our information. We are in the process, the finishing stages of closing some advertisement agreements with some micro newspapers on the west side, South LA, and the Valley. If you know of any micro newspapers that we should be reaching out, let us know. We are trying to do strategic outreach to individuals and stakeholders from all age groups. Obviously, social media is important, but we also understand that a lot of people still seek information from print media. So we're definitely trying to cover ground on that. Additionally, some podcasts. We know a lot of people listen to some LA-centric podcasts or get information from some podcasts. So we are in coordination with some podcast channels that have some regional podcasts to see if we can get an ad, and obviously some local radio. We have a meeting at the end of this week to hopefully finalize that, and obviously public transportation ads are in our plan as well. So with that said, pivoting into how you, neighborhood council leaders, can also help, especially if you're an outreach chair or an election chair, if you're attending tonight, and if you're not, but you want to pass on this information, more than happy, as I stated, to pass along this presentation so that you can share it with the people that are doing a lot of the awareness work. Obviously, all of us should be ambassadors of the work that the neighborhood council does, but I understand that there's some focused individuals that are particularly focused on election awareness and engagement. So just wanted to highlight a couple of things and the importance that how neighborhood councils can complement the work that our department is doing. You all know your communities best. You all know what messaging works best in your communities, what methodologies work best. So with that said, you all can be of great help in identifying key community partners and helping with developing awareness through the messaging and what type of messaging works, helping us determine engagement and awareness methods, and also helping us define the education resources and tools that will be most effective this election cycle. And with that, just some general best practices on some of the questions that I get the most, that I've been getting the most during some one-on-ones from neighborhood council board members and committee members that are doing this awareness work is, how do they identify key local partners? I can share a bit of how I go about it and how I support neighborhood councils who ask for my support. It's really looking at obviously, those organizations and those partners that you've cultivated relationships and that you have existing relationships with, and using those relationships to leverage your communications during this election cycle, right? Using those relationships to extend your community outreach even further, using some of that technology that you've already set in place and really use it to share information with them. So CBOs can really play a role in helping you neighborhood councils take your engagement to the next level. So how you can start is, if you haven't already, start building your list, whether it be your newsletter list, your email list, your contact list. Really take a look at, past NPG applicants and recipients. How I go about it is, I use the Office of the City Clerk's funding division. I use the dashboard, the public dashboard, where you all track your outstanding payments, your checks, and your MERS. I use that and I filter it by NPG payments. I look at the last 3 years and I look at all the organizations that the neighborhood council provided MPG funds to. And then I usually will do outreach to those. I would just contact them, let them know that you have an election, and if they could pass along some communication to their newsletter list, or if they have an upcoming meeting, you can have maybe a couple of minutes on their agenda to just do a plug and let people know that you have an upcoming election. If that's not feasible for board members on your council, I myself am more than willing to also do it, to go out with you, or to make those connections and do those presentations, and do that pitch. But I think it's always great when neighborhood councils create those relationships and form those and cultivate those relationships, because I think that it goes definitely is definitely better long term for the neighborhood council. Obviously nonprofits, homeowner associations, book clubs, chamber of commerce, any local businesses within your service region that that you engage with, interact with, may have potential individuals that could be, great candidates or voters, need to be part of your list and need to be part of your engagement plan. Additionally, as I stated, we'll be providing messaging for all stages of the election cycle. We'll be using the social press kit to share a lot of that information. So no need for you all to create that information unless you want tailored information that's specific to your neighborhood council. But sharing that information with some of those CBOs that once you create that list is key. Sharing it on your website, social media, newsletter, at your in-person events. is key. If you are in election mode, if you're doing an event, especially during the holidays now, you should have election information. You should be sharing upcoming deadlines with your stakeholders. They should know that you are in election mode. So with that, I think best practices are creating an engagement and awareness program for your neighborhood council. Find ways to engage your board and committee members. It's not just on you. I know that you are all here tonight, but it's really a team effort. It's a collaborative effort. It's about reaching partner organizations so they can help you spread the message. It's about us, the department, providing you the resources that you need and the tailored support that you need. It's about you also sharing the information and also reaching out to your professional friend and community networks and letting them know about the neighborhood council system, about the work that you do, letting them know that your neighborhood council is looking for potential leaders at the moment. And if they themselves are interested or they can help you share that message, um, it would definitely get the community more involved, and bring forth the mission of the neighborhood council. So with that said, it's a group effort. It's not just on you all that are here tonight. And if there's any way that I can help you all with sharing that message to the rest of the individuals on your board, please let me know how I can support that. Additionally, an election information page on your website. We always recommend that neighborhood councils have ideally a page dedicated, but if not, maybe a banner, a flyer, a blurb on their websites that speaks about the neighborhood council election, with important deadlines, links to the application, maybe links to a candidate list if it's past the candidate filing deadline, maybe a link that takes them to the clerk's website so that they can get more information, or to our election website. The idea is that if someone were to visit your website, essentially between now and the end of your election cycle, they should see information on your website. They should know that your neighborhood council is looking for potential applicants or asking people to take part in their elections by being a voter. Same thing for your social media. Same thing for your newsletters. You should have blurbs or corners or graphics that let individuals know that you are having a neighborhood council election. Community and neighborhood council events, I think same applies. Build neighborhood council awareness into those, either by using the flyers that we provide, the messaging that we provide, include them into your tabling. If you all have the capacity and the time to build in some canvassing, so walking in the neighborhood, whether it be a residential area, a business area, whether it be dropping by schools, introducing yourself to administrators, letting them know that you're having an election, seeing if they could distribute a flyer maybe to staff, using your capacity of board members and your committee members to kind of spread that awareness is key. Social media, I think I've spoken a lot about that. Just using your Facebook, Instagrams, Twitter, or X, Nextdoor, any other social media platform that your neighborhood council might be on, to distribute election information. We have some ready to go posts that, as we demonstrated with Social Press Kit. Additionally, providing that content to community-based partners in your community and asking them to share that material so they can share it with their networks is key. So that way it amplifies the messaging. So that way it's not just your followers, but their followers who are also seeing the content. That would be great as well. Voter engagement presentations. As I mentioned, I'm out and about doing presentations around Los Angeles to CBOs. I also welcome, coordination and collaboration with neighborhood councils. If you know of an organization that has regular meetings, whether it be membership meetings, um, I am more than willing to be your counterpart at some of these meetings and go out and really talk about the work that neighborhood councils do. And also, I am also, this is an invitation to ask you all if you're interested in coming with me to some of these presentations and speak about the work that you do. I also welcome that. I just had somebody join me at a meeting last week, and that was, it was a really impactful meeting due to their participation. Advertisement, neighborhood councils obviously can utilize at cost and no cost messaging throughout their neighborhood council service area. There's public service announcements, there are ads, articles, and local publications, online ads like Facebook ads, social media ads. The bus bench program for neighborhood councils is essentially free for neighborhood councils. Neighborhood councils only have to pay for the printing. So that is also a resource that neighborhood councils can use. I can definitely provide information to your neighborhood council if you all are interested in using bus bench and bus shelter ads as part of your outreach plan, either during the election cycle or even post-election as year-round engagement. And also, if you have a school, a university, or a college, a high school, especially if you have a youth seat that's up for election, and even during off election cycles, if you have a youth seat that's up for appointment, focus on outreach opportunities at those campuses, and make them part of your engagement plan. We definitely have contacts, at LAUSD. So if there's any way that I can facilitate some of that work, please let me know. Always willing to help with that. And with that said, I always look forward to any questions that you all may have, any feedback. As I stated, I am available for one-on-ones, to come out to board meetings and to tailor any information to your specific needs with your neighborhood council. And with that said, I am going to drop a couple of, I know we're going to open up for questions. So with that said, while we do that, I'm going to drop the link to the social press kit so that you all can take a look at it. And additionally, also happy to hear if there are any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Marilyn. So with that, we will open it up to questions. So please use the raise hand function if you have any questions, because I think we covered everything in the chat so far. Any questions? I will state, so we did record this meeting, and so I will be emailing it out hopefully later this week. You'll receive this email with copies of the slides that were presented, and it will be available on the City Clerk's YouTube website as well if you want to share that or need to refer back to the presentation. So with that, any questions, Marilyn?
Thank you, Michael. I realized that I forgot to mention something, and something quite important that I wanted to mention. As I know that many neighborhood councils, maybe your meeting has already passed for December. Maybe you are not having a meeting in December, but please, we do have hard copy applications, candidate filing applications in our office, that your NEAs, your neighborhood empowerment advocates, can take out to meetings. Some neighborhood empowerment advocates will automatically bring them with them to your meetings. Others may be running low others may not have them with them. So just to make sure, if you are in need of candidate filing applications, if you would like some for your upcoming events, to have at meetings, to distribute, please reach out to your NEA and inform them about how many you'd like. We can provide as many as you all need. And we have them in all the languages that Michael mentioned earlier. I think it's up to, is it 13 languages, Michael?
Yes,
Yeah.
13 languages.
So we have all the languages. Additionally, we can also provide the NC tailored candidate filing flyer and the door hangers and any other supplies that you may need to do promotion of the candidate filing period. So communicate with your NEAs just to make sure that they bring that. And we do have postage paid envelopes for the hard copy applications in our office as well. So we can get those out to you all. Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. All right. Any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. No? All right, then I think we're good. Thank you everybody for attending this evening. Like I said, we'll get you copies of this presentation so you can refer back to it. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. So thank you everybody. Have a good night.